started. First, I want to thank you all for being here, especially the parents in the room, and welcome you to Top Driver. This is our parent orientation. This is an opportunity we very much value in that this will be a partnership going forward starting today. So we want that to start off in a very communicative manner. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page with the ever-changing policies and procedures at the Illinois Secretary of State's office, which, as you know, is fun always. So we want to make sure that we're all up to date on policies and procedures, and just a little bit more about how things are going to go, because for a lot of you, this may be an intimidating process with your first son or daughter learning how to drive in and of itself, and then keeping up to date with permit laws and so on. So we want to make sure you all are ready and comfortable, not only with the experience that your son or daughter is going to have here with us, but also with you. And I'm going to kind of outline how that's going to go, starting here from day one. My name is Jim Mihaljevic. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Training for Top Driver. I'm going to be here with the class here today and tomorrow. Mr. Archer Wimberg, who greeted you at the door, will be the classroom instructor. He has a conflict later in the week, so there will be a different instructor. It's not normally what we do, but we'll have Mr. Anthony Rodriguez, who's actually the regional manager for the area, covering class for the last 2 days this week. So you get a little bit of everyone, which is actually at the top of the class, so you should hopefully enjoy that. Today is day one of classroom training for your son's or daughter's driver education experience. The Illinois Secretary of State does require, per their graduated licensing laws, that they attend 30 hours of classroom training. To meet this requirement, we'll be meeting for 15 days for 2-hour classes, with today being the first. So it's Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., so 10 to noon, Monday through Thursday, ending on August 1st. So those 15 days of class will end on a Wednesday, August 1st. So they must be in attendance for 30 hours of classroom in order to receive credit for this course. So that being said, things do arise, whether it be illness or otherwise, where a student may miss class. The state does allow for what they call deviances from the regularly attended course up to 4 times. So that means a student may be absent up to 4 times from this course. However, any day that they miss, they need to make up. So for example, if they were to miss this Thursday is day 4. They'll be making up day 4 with another one of our classrooms that are going on either at this facility, or keep in mind that all of our Top Driver facilities are reciprocal, meaning here Elmhurst, Naperville, Lombard, Wheaton, we're all kind of in this area. So when you need to schedule a makeup class, what you'll do is you'll give our customer service number a call, which is 1-800-DRIVE-RED. We got in there early, it's pretty good. I wrote the number up there as well. I'm going to be referencing a few items that are on the whiteboard here. Don't worry and try to write down too fast. This information will all be in the students' workbook when they leave here today, so don't worry, they'll have all the pertinent info. But just keep in mind that scheduling makeups must be done over the phone with customer service, and that they can actually be scheduled prior to the class actually being missed. So some of you may have a previous engagement that was pre-planned on day 12. So you can actually call, let them know that your son or daughter is going to be missing day 12 and schedule that makeup and potentially even make it up before it occurs. So just keep in mind though, even absences that are made up count as absences. That's a hard and fast rule by the Secretary of State's office. If for any reason a student misses a 5th day of class, the state will drop them from this course and require them to start over. So students, make sure the alarms are set. 10 a.m. should be a little bit more manageable for you. But we want to make sure that we're here on time. What I mean by on time is the state's rule is for them to be marked as present, they can be no later than 10 minutes past the scheduled start time. So for this course, it's 10:10. That doesn't mean everybody roll in at 10:10. That means that's the maximum late allowable period for them to be marked present. And like I said, these are hard and fast Illinois Secretary of State laws, not ours. So we want to make sure that they're aware of that. And in turn, things that happen midday, afternoon, where you may want them to leave class early, that same 10-minute grace period applies at the back end of class as well. We are not allowed to dismiss them any earlier than 10 minutes before the scheduled end time of the class for this course would be noon. So 11:50 would be the earliest we could allow them to leave. Now hopefully that's a rare occurrence when we're allowing entry late or leaving early at that 11:50 mark. We don't want to make it a regular occurrence, but if they must leave 5 or 10 minutes early, make sure you communicate that to the instructor at the beginning of class, either yourself or let the instructor know. So it could be as limited disruption as possible. We can just let them dismiss if need be. Any questions about the attendance policy? So I mentioned that the last day of class will be August 1st. On that last day of class, we will be taking a written final exam. During class, we will be utilizing this student workbook. This student workbook is the textbook, notebook, workbook, activity book, all in one. This will be the student's property. They will be writing their name on it. They will need to bring this with them to class every day. Everything that we cover in this course will be within this workbook, including all of the material that they will need to know in order to successfully pass that written final exam on the last day of class. Now, that exam is 50 questions, true, false, multiple choice, and matching. And since our curriculum is accredited by the Illinois Secretary of State's office, that written test will stand as their driver's license exam for licensure, meaning they will still have to take and pass an on-road evaluation at time of licensure, but they will not be taking another written test at that time. However, they will be required to take the written permit test at the facility. So one thing I will recommend is waiting until at least after the second day of class, because we will be covering anything and everything they need to know for that permit exam on the first 2 days of class, up to and including tomorrow we'll be taking a practice test, okay? As far as eligibility for permits, as long as they're 15 years of age and actively enrolled in the driver education course, they are eligible. We will also be filling out today in class their permit application. So this permit application we'll fill out together in class, which we fill out in its entirety with a few exceptions. The state does not want the social security number pre-printed on the forms. You know, God forbid this gets lost, obviously that's information that you do not want to lose. The only thing that's going to be needing to be filled out on here, with the exception of any information the student may not know about themselves, address and so on, would be down here, which is a parent's signature. Now this signature is you giving permission for them to acquire a permit in the state of Illinois. Students, this permission is revocable up until your 18th birthday. So this is when we're on our best behavior. But keep in mind, whichever parent will be accompanying them to receive their permit should be the parent that signs this document, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about the permit process here in a second, but first I want to wrap up classroom. That final exam, as I mentioned, the minimum passing score in the state of Illinois is 75%. Since our test is 50 questions, that means our minimum passing score is 76%. They can miss up to 12 questions. We shouldn't be shooting for that, but it is allowable. If your son or daughter does have an IEP or 504 plan that does require accommodations for exams, we can accommodate them in whichever manner they may need. Those are usually handled as separate one-on-one testing appointments. So if you know that your son or daughter may require this option, contact either ourselves as the instructors or customer service at some point here during the beginning of the classroom course, just so we can make sure that we schedule that. Some students who even may have that IEP or 504 plan still may choose to take the standard exam with this course. They're welcome to, but I just want to make sure that you're aware that you have that option. Any questions about the classroom course attendance or otherwise? So you all have met the age requirements by being enrolled in this course, but there's another eligibility requirement that the Secretary of State has, and that's academic standing. So there are multiple ways to prove out academic standing. As far as the state of Illinois is concerned, in order to be in good academic standing, they must have passed a minimum of 8 classroom courses over the last 2 completed semesters. Okay, that's a nice arbitrary rule, but how does that be proven? In the past, report cards were simple. Everybody got a report card mailed home and had all the pertinent student and school information and otherwise. Well, a lot of the school districts have now gone to online grading systems, which don't always provide proper printouts, and the state has turned away a lot of them. So what they have given us in turn is this grade verification form. So you can, if you haven't already done so, I know a few people walked in with this today, great. If not, no worries. Take this with the student information at the top, student signature, parent signature, school administrator signature at the bottom, just saying that they are in good academic standing. If you haven't got this completed yet, don't worry. All of the schools still do have office hours in the summer. So all you have to do is go into the main office. They've seen these forms lots of times. We've been here for a while. They're used to it. They'll know what to do. They just sign off that the student is in good academic standing. Please make sure to have this into the instructor by the last day of class if possible, because regardless of them passing the course and completing the driving requirements, if we do not have this form in hand, they will not be allowed to be passed as far as the graduating licensing requirements. So this is a very important. So I have extra copies of these if anybody needs them before they leave. Otherwise, this should have been part of your welcome email that you received when you enrolled for the course. Any questions about the academic eligibility?
So just getting the grades from the school,
So,
does that work?
that's a good question. So they may still work depending on the printout that you may have or if you have transcripts. So the pertinent information on the grade report, if you're going to be using that, school name, school term, which for these students must be the completed school year, fall and spring of 17-18. So student name, school term, and then at minimum of 8 passing grades, then yes, we can accept that. So if you think that meets that, then yes, we could still accept it. It's just a lot of these Edline and PowerSchool systems, if you don't use the proper print screen, it doesn't have that information. So yes, if you have that today, I'll definitely check that before you get worried. But if it's not, meeting the proper requirements, we can definitely use the grade verification form. Any other questions about that? So obviously, classroom's important. Classroom's half of our offering. The other half is the in-vehicle training. So because you are enrolled, as I mentioned earlier, in a driver education course, and you will or already are 15 years of age, you are eligible for a permit in the state of Illinois. You will need to require that permit at a full-service Secretary of State facility because there will be a written test, as I mentioned, that must be completed and passed at the facility. That written test is 20 true-false multiple choice questions and then 15 sign matching activities. So you do identifying 15 signs and also answering 20 true-false multiple choice questions. All the information on that, like I said, we'll be covering today and tomorrow in class. This form is important and imperative that you have this with you, along with the proper identification materials. This is inclusive of the original birth certificate. If it's a photocopy, it must be a notarized copy, otherwise they will not accept it. And then a secondary form, which can be either a Social Security card or passport. So they have to have identification just as we would for applying for licensure at this time. They also require a proof of residency. So for us, it's easy. We'll bring a bill. Most 15-year-olds don't have bills mailed. And if you have a grade printout like that has a student name and address, they may accept that. Do not worry if you don't have any mail with the student's name and address on it. There is an affidavit at the facility that you can sign as the parent or legal guardian that they reside at your address. So don't panic. I've had parents worry about that. So don't worry, you can get that completed. So no appointment necessary. Obviously select the best time possible for everyone's availability to get there. 4 o'clock on a Friday or around the first or last of the month is not the best. Unless you want them to get the full experience of the sunshine and rainbows that is the Secretary of State. It depends. If you want to really get them into the process, it depends. So once the student has their permit, they are then legally allowed to drive with a parent or legal guardian who also has a license in the state of Illinois for a minimum of 1 year, and it's in good standing. So you cannot chaperone a permitted driver on a suspended license, for example. Or anyone over the age of 21 who also meets those requirements of having the license for a minimum of 1 year and it's in good standing, they can chaperone that driver as a learning permitted driver in the state of Illinois. So that being said, that sometimes can be very intimidating, obviously. Any practice is good practice. I have some parents and students that'll come in, second week of class, I got my permit over the weekend, I drove home from the facility. I'm like, oh wow. Mostly the parents pretty brave, because usually students are ready. Right? So it's you guys as parents' responsibility and comfort level to decide when they're ready. As far as signing up for driving lessons, once they are permitted, technically, they can begin scheduling lessons with us. So that process can be done one of 2 ways. You could do so over the phone with our customer service center or at topdriversignals.com, which is our student portal, which is, you should have received a username and password when you enrolled in the course. If for some reason you lost that email, otherwise don't worry. Give our customer service center a call. They can give you that username and password again. I apologize, they're automatically generated username and passwords, so they're not super easy to remember, so make sure you have them written down or saved somewhere. So as far as scheduling driving lessons, we load our schedules out in advance about 45 days so that students who are in process and completing lessons are able to schedule kind of on a rolling calendar. So for example, we just loaded our schedules for August and we'll be soon loading our schedules for September. So when you go online to schedule lessons, the goal should not be to complete all of those lessons within 2 weeks. The state of Illinois requires that all in-vehicle lessons and classroom lessons be completed within 9 months from the first day of class. So that means April 9th, 2019 is your son or daughter's completion deadline. However, I don't want that to seem as if we should wait until 2019 to start either, right? So it's kind of finding that happy medium. Ideally, we're scheduling lessons about one every other week or more to allow for that parent practice in between lessons. So the approach that we take with the in-vehicle training is we want to challenge them with new skills, and then we want them to be reinforced at home. And it kind of goes in line with the state requirement. They're going to be with us for 6, 8, 10 hours, depending on which program you choose, and they're going to be with you for a minimum of 50 hours, right? So that's where that partnership comes into play. So we're going to be working with them. You're going to be receiving and should be expecting an on-road coaching guide after each lesson. So we'll try to make contact with you as a parent as we drop off, pick up, but sometimes you guys are at home. We do offer home pickup, drop off, which I'll talk about here in a minute. So if for some reason you're not home after the lesson, ask them for that and make sure they give that to you. So that's an expectation that you should have. It's going to tell you what we did on the lesson, what went well, what may have not gone so well. And in turn, if you're seeing something when you're practicing with them that kind of troubles you, make sure to communicate that to us, and we'll make sure we add that into their next lessons plan as well. So any practice is good practice. The first couple hours, don't feel bad if you're in a parking lot. They may get a little frustrated. Just get used to the controls of the vehicle, because as easy as it looks when they're sitting in the back seat or the passenger seat with somebody who's been an experienced driver, it's a little intimidating when they get behind the wheel, whether they tell you that or not. It's kind of got that cockpit feel with all the bells and whistles, right? Accelerating, braking, straight line, nice smooth turning, big wide empty parking lot's great. A quiet residential area is good. My personal favorite for getting started with a new driver is the cemetery. Nice quiet, winding roads, a few intersections. You can't kill anybody, they're already dead. Just making sure we're still late. So like I said, any practice is good practice. When scheduling lessons, which program you chose is going to be important. Silver students are scheduled to, are signed up to enroll in the minimum requirements for the state, which are 6 hours of driving, 6 hours of observation. So if you know that your son or daughter is in our our silver program, my apologies, you're going to sign up generally for 2-hour blocks, where they're going to drive for an hour, be partnered with another student, and then observe for an hour. So you'll do that 6 times for 2 hours. If you're a gold program student, the state allows for additional driving time to be substituted for that observation time. So they have this nice spreadsheet where X hours equals Y minutes, you know. So those 2 additional hours cover those 6 hours of observation. So you'll be scheduling 8 1-hour driving appointments. If you're in our platinum program, that just then carries forward an additional 2 hours. Now the difference between gold and platinum, the student has met the requirements at that 8-hour point, so that 9th and 10th hour of driving can be used in succession with the initial lesson plan, or can be held back to be used when it gets closer to license time. Because for a lot of these students, they just turned 15. So we're 9 to 12 months away from license time, so it's nice maybe to hold back a lesson or two if you have that option. Otherwise, you're always welcome to come back for a lesson one at a time if you do decide that's something you would like to do. We are evaluating the students in the vehicle as well as in the classroom. We generally do that on-road evaluation on their 6th lesson, regardless of which program they're in. So that is a pass-fail on-road evaluation. It's not a surprise if a student is not going to do well on that. We'll be communicating you throughout the process. And generally, if we see a student is really struggling, you know, come lesson 2, lesson 3, we'll suggest that we kind of postpone that next lesson or two, you know, to get that at-home practice. However, if you are on the gold or platinum and we have those additional lessons built in, sometimes we'll spread out the lesson planning so as to make sure that they're ready before they're given the examination in the vehicle. Any questions about the in-vehicle training scheduling component? So like I said, you can do it over the phone with customer service, or you can do it online at Top Driver Signals. Much like the classroom attendance rule in the vehicle, that 10-minute grace period is given, meaning that if the drive was supposed to begin at 1 o'clock, if they're past that 1:10 point, that lesson cannot be conducted because, you know, you can't give an hour lesson in less than 50 minutes, right? So the state will not give credit for that. So make sure once you schedule lessons, it gets in the phone, on the calendar, on the fridge, post-it note on the forehead, whatever you need to do, make sure they're here, because it's summer and a lot of you will be at work. We offer home pickup and drop off here in Elmhurst. So, you know, we may be picking them up, you're not home. It has happened where I came to a house at like 12:30, 1 o'clock and they're asleep. Right? It's not out of the realm realm of possibility, right? So make sure that they're aware and present, whether we also pick up here at the facility, so whichever is more convenient for you, we have options as far as pick up and drop off. If you're visiting from one of our neighboring areas, our other facilities may pick up in the town in which you're coming from. Anybody here not an Elmhurst resident? Where are you coming from?
Lombard,
So we pick up in Lombard from our Lombard facility.
Berkeley,
Where's that?
Berkeley.
I don't think we currently pick up in that area, unfortunately, I do apologize. Oak Brook, we do pick up now, starting in July. We just opened up a new facility in Hinsdale. Just started today, literally today's opening day. So you can schedule potentially your drives out of the Hinsdale facility as home pickup and drop off. So those are things, so if you know you're kind of in an area where we may or may not service, that first initial call to customer service is gonna be helpful, because they can talk you through how to change up the file searching on Top Driver Signal. So if for any reason a lesson is missed, or the student is unable to complete the lesson because they don't have their permit in hand, keep in mind that the instructional permit that the state gives you is an individual copy, much like the driver's license now. In the past, it was just a regular sheet of paper that copies were acceptable. That rule changed 2 summers ago. They must have that original copy of their permit in hand to drive with us or with you or with anyone. So make sure they have that with them. The good news is it comes in kind of a perforated paper, and it comes out until this little foldable card size. So if the student has a wallet or a purse that they can keep it in, I've seen a lot of students, which is pretty well advised, putting it in their phone case, because they're definitely not going to lose that phone, right? So they even have little phone wallets now, right? Little thing. So just make sure they don't lose it. If for any reason you do lose it, when you receive that permit initially, they're going to give you a receipt. Save that receipt separately. It's going to help you kind of fast pass the DMV a little bit, right? So otherwise they can print out a new one. But like I said, if there's we missed a lesson because we didn't show up, or you're more than 10 minutes beyond the start time, there will be a rescheduling fee, so we want to avoid that. You're gonna get an email from us 48 hours in advance of a lesson. So if you want to schedule a lesson, well, you could do that all the way up until 24 hours prior to that lesson. So you may be scheduling lessons out in September here in the next couple weeks, and then things change between now and then, and you want to reschedule, that's fine. We just ask that you give us at least 24 hours notice so that we can plug in a different student into that slot. As far as picking up and dropping off, because we do offer home pickup, we generally do what we call a piggybacking method, where say student A is scheduled at 3, student B is scheduled at 4. Student A will pick up student B at 4 o'clock, and then the first few minutes of student B's lesson will be driving student A home. Because of that, when you're scheduling these lessons, consider that end time to be a little bit beyond the posted end time. Right? We want to make sure all students are getting their full required drive time, so they may be dropped off a little bit beyond that. So I know they're crazy busy with all kinds of extracurriculars and lessons and so on. So if they need to be somewhere at 4 o'clock, try not to schedule them to be ending a lesson at 4 o'clock. And if that does happen for some reason, communicate that to the instructor when they're picked up, so that we can do our best to get them where they need to be on time. All right? Any questions about the in-vehicle training component of Top Driver? So like I said, figure out if you're not quite sure, you can't remember. Another offering that we just launched this past March for our students who have enrolled in the Gold program and above is our Parent Care program. So what you'll have now as a parent coaching tool is an online course that you can take as parents to kind of guide you through that in-vehicle process. So you should have also received a welcome email from our Parent Care program. It's just a 12-module, little 2 to 5 minute modules where it kind of takes you through the process of what it's like as a parent with a teen driver. And then the second half of that Parent Care program is actually a student post-licensing course. So what's going to happen is once they've received their license for the initial 6-month period, which is the most dangerous for learning drivers, is that solo first 6 months. Every 2 weeks they'll receive a module online that they can go through to keep them thinking about safe driving practices and so on. So if you've enrolled in a program Gold and Above, you should have received that welcome email. If not, check your email, and if you definitely can't find it, give our customer service center a call, and they can help you out with that. Any questions about our programs in general? All right. Well, I don't have anything else for you. If you guys don't have any other questions, like I said, I very much appreciate you guys being here today. If you do have any questions going forward, our contact info is up here on the board. It will be in the students' workbook as well. If you want to keep up to date with what they're working on each day in class, Keep in mind, there is a syllabus on the inside cover of their student workbook, so feel free to quiz them as we go. And then, like I said, this first page in the workbook will have all the pertinent information that was on the whiteboard. So parents, as far as grades, if you have anything to turn in, please leave it with your son or daughter. If you did have an opportunity to fill out that parent orientation survey, we'll take that. If not, you can take it home and the students can bring it back tomorrow. Otherwise, you guys are free to go. We will dismiss at noon. Thank you.